I would like to start with a question. Let's assume that what Shell has been presenting here will be totally correct, which
It is.
It is, yes. So in 10 years' time, we will have a totally different situation when it comes to our energy situation. What will be the biggest changes in Stockholm as a consequence of peak oil? And why don't you start, Per? What do you think?
Well, I think that Shell really presented for us the amount of change that will be necessary in society as a whole. And I think that you can see it in a depressing way or in an optimistic way. And I choose to see it from an optimistic viewpoint. I think that it will be a very, very, very big challenge for society as a whole. But I think that urban areas, and perhaps Stockholm in particular, have a much better opportunity to meet this challenge than other parts of our society and our countries. Because we have the density of the city, we have the public transportation system, we have the sewer system, we have the fjärrvärme, what is that called? District heating, which is run mostly on renewable fuels. So perhaps we will have a little bit smoother transition than other parts of the world. But that is not to say that we will have a very easy journey ahead. I think there will be a very big challenge for Stockholm as well.
But if you should pick one area in particular that it will be...
Yeah, well, I think that one of the biggest problems will be to have energy enough for all our needs, and especially for housing, because as we know, big areas of Stockholm are built in the 60s and 70s with a technology that is not at all up to date, which is very energy inefficient. So we have to start immediately to rebuild the older parts of our buildings in Stockholm, and that's a need that we have to start right now. We have to do it in a very fast pace to decrease our energy needs as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And the rest of you, you want to care to comment on that?
Yeah, well, if we look into what we should do ourselves, I mean, you should always think, when you think about changing things, what will I do in the future? And we should also remember that we will not run out of oil. We will have less oil compared to what we have today. And oil will be with us even 1930, to 2030, I mean. But that means that you will look into what should I use my share of the oil for? Because having a car, be able to drive, is freedom, that you can move from one place to another. I can go and visit my children, you can drive your kids to football training and so on. But what you will look into the future is that how should I go to work? Because the oil that I have available for me and my family, I will use it for the freedom and not for going to work. So that is the planning for the future. You have to think about how should people go to work, and that is. But you should not say that don't use oil, because you will do it, but you will do it less. Another thing is that I come from Uppsala. That is really the capital of bikes in Sweden. I mean, it's fantastic to see all the bikes at the railway station and so on. And I think that the generation that goes to college and university today that are biking, they will put an electric motor on their bikes, and they will look into China and see what's happening in China. My generation is lost, I mean, your generation is also lost. Yeah. Because you're always thinking about cars, you're talking about cars and cars and cars. But I mean, look into China, because what people are doing there is that they have changed their bikes to bikes with some electric engines in, and that I think it will be. I mean, many of my students will have an electric Vespa, for instance, and sooner or later they will have a roof on that because they like to have shelter when it's raining. But I mean, planning for the infrastructure with electric bikes is very important for the future.
In the report that Simon has written, you elaborate some on how our economy is dependent on oil. What changes do you see when it comes to our economy in a situation of scarce energy resources?
Well, raw material costs are likely to go up, so that would have an impact on prices. We've already looked at food and how dependent that is on oil, and therefore, again, that could provide a challenge. And so, you know, when you were talking about what that might look like in Stockholm, for example, I think a really important issue is, yes, you know, there will be still oil, but how do we address this? Who will be able to afford it? And we might, you know, the changes that we're able to make now could make a real difference. Otherwise, you're going to get a very sort of stratified kind of society, and that could cause its own tensions and so on. So I think that's worth bearing in mind. You know, if you can really like move things that are essential to people, if you can make them less oil dependent and really think about that, then there's that could be a softer landing. But the economy, you know, in my view, will have to change, and I think there's making things locally. It's not that you can do everything locally, but you can change the economy from the kind of really globalized, everything globalized, because it's cheap. If transport becomes more of a factor, then it'll be less cheap, and therefore you can think about localizing the economy more to reduce the impact, and also thinking about the use of things. You know, that we're very throwaway. Everything is just like, you know, well, we use it once and there it goes. And I know, you know, you're better at that here in Sweden than we are. I can just see that from the bin in my hotel room. But you know, there's so much more that we can do to reduce what we use and really value the resources that we have.
I get a feeling sometimes when we discuss these things that we are kind of trapped in our minds on how we should, you know, solve different kind of problems. And I'm thinking about Trafikverket, how you plan the new infrastructure and so on. And I wondered, do you take into account, you know, different methods to reduce our oil dependency, like carpools or making people collaborate more to minimize the use of cars, for example? Not only, you know, put in more biofuels or build public transport.
Yes, of course we work also with trying to get people more independent of the car, even if most of the transport system is of course still planned for the car, and that is because that is what the politicians says to us to actually do. So we are still doing that, but of course we have a work that have been for more than 10 years that we have worked with in projects that people should use public transport more, that we collaborate with the municipalities in projects like that, and also to do the goods transport more efficient and so on. So in a way we are trying to do as much as we can there, but still we need the right decisions from the politicians. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say that if someone has a question, please raise your hand and I'll try to squeeze it into the discussion. I'll take a note if someone is interested to put a question to the panel here while we're speaking. And talking about politicians, and we have one here, Per. Yeah. I wonder, I mean, you speak about peak oil, but most politicians seem to be kind of scared of talking about peak oil. Why is that?
I think that is very much an issue of knowledge, actually. I noticed the same pattern when we were starting to discuss climate change, where there was a very long period of ignoring the issue and not taking it into account the way it should be. And it was just recently that we actually, politicians from different sectors, from different parties, actually acknowledge climate change as a very big problem that our society will have to manage. And I think that peak oil is perhaps where the climate change discussion was in the 80s or so right now. And that's, of course, a problem because, as we have seen from Kjell's presentation here, we have an acute situation. It's a very short time to act. And that means that we don't have the time that we've had in the climate change debate in society. So we have to move much faster than that. And that's a very big problem, how to get the attention in society for this issue fast enough. And I think that one of the main problems is, of course, that the media hasn't responded to this challenge at all. And there's very little coverage in our media about this very, very challenging situation.
But do you think it's possible to make politics out of peak oil without... My microphone sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Right? I think I do like this instead. We can share this one, right?
I'll do the backing singing.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of politicians are kind of scared of this issue because they think this will turn away voters. But
yeah, absolutely.
Could you turn it into some kind of positive? Could you make a peak oil family fun day like in Bristol and actually do something creative about this?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the things I will take with me from this day and from Simone's presentation, that you have to show inspiration and you have to show the possibilities of this challenge. That actually, if we do it the right way and if we start acting now, we could actually turn it into a positive change in society. And that's, of course, my hope. And I think that one of the keys for raising the awareness is to start discussing how the decrease in oil production will happen in society. Because now I think everyone is just anticipating there will be a very steady decline and we will be able to manage it and control it. But in my view, that is not at all true. It might just as well be a very sharp, abrupt shift, and there will be a volatility in oil prices, for example, that will be very challenging for our society in the short term.
Well, first of all, about oil price. Many people believe that we could have $300 per barrel in the future. That's not right. We cannot have that because society will not function with that high price of energy. There will be no airplane traffic at all, and so on. So the maximum price for oil is below $200 per barrel. That is, of course, a problem because then the alternative energies must be made very efficiently. And if politicians should do something, is to give us the courage for the transition. The people I work with here in Sweden that understand the problem and know that they had to do something, that is the industry. Because the industry must have the capacity to think 20 years ahead. What will happen with my company 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And for instance, one of the big companies in Sweden, Volvo Trucks with Leif Johansson, has officially, as the first company in the world, peak oil as one of the driving forces for the future. You know, and he also officially tells people that we have these things. And I have other industry leaders. Unfortunately, politicians cannot handle this matter because it is they are just thinking 3 years, maybe 4 years ahead. And we are talking about planning.
Not all of us.
Well, I mean, the problem is that the general public only thinks 1 year ahead, you know. So if they should be re-elected, they cannot discuss these things. I know about these things quite well, also, you should know. So I think that the one we can hope for in the future is industry, and we should give them, politicians should give them the means to make the transition happen, because